So this week, I wanted to cover theories versus parallel versus booster connections for running your ReeBoxx. So basically, you can run your ReeBoxx with one battery and a booster. You can run your ReeBoxx with two batteries and no booster. Sometimes you may need three batteries. Just depends on what you're setting up. But today we're mostly talking about 24-volt setups. You can run it with two batteries and a booster, or you can run it with two batteries, no booster. But there's pros and cons to every single way of doing this. Right here we have two of the same batteries. So these are the same amp hour batteries, the same voltage, and that's very important when it comes to adding more than one battery. So these batteries I got very cheaply on Amazon during Prime days. I do recommend buying your batteries on Prime days because they are much cheaper than they normally are. So Prime days are definitely ideal for buying your lithium-ion phosphate batteries. These were very cheap. I don't even think they sell them anymore, but they're not very long running. So I just use them for testing and tinkering and things of that nature. But anyway, one of the biggest things when you are setting up a series or a parallel setup, you want to make sure that your battery amp hours are the same. Because if you have say this battery is 30 amp hours and this battery is 20, if you have these set up in series looking for 24 volts, if the BMS shuts this one off, you're now only got 12 volts. And the same thing if you're setting it up in parallel. If you are setting this up and you are expecting run times for parallel to be double, because you would have, say, 30 amp hours and say this one's 30 amp hours. So you're expecting 60 amp hours of runtime. This one dies, you don't have 60 amp hours of runtime anymore. So if this is a different amp hour than this one, when you're running, you basically will be defaulted to the smaller battery size because one VMS will shut off. So basically that's what I want to go over today. I think we got more time on the whiteboard in this week than we ever have. So I'm going to just go to the whiteboard and let you guys see that and just cover some basic things when it comes to a ReeBoxx and setting it up in either series or parallel or boosted. So I appreciate you guys watching. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. All right. ReeBoxx series versus parallel versus booster for 24-volt setup. So as you can see on the left, the series connected setup is pretty straightforward, very simple. You basically add two batteries, you wire them in series, and you're done. You just connect it to your battery port of your ReeBoxx, and you got 24 volts. So that's the pro of it. The con is if you had two 100 amp hour batteries, when you wire them together like this, you only have 100 amp hours. So you lose half of your runtime just because you are wiring them in series. So that's the bad part on that. And it's more expensive that way. And you're also very limited. With the exception of, there's a lot of batteries out there now that are 300 amp hours. But for you to buy two 300 amp hour batteries, connect them in series, it would be very expensive, and you would lose 300 amp hours rather than having 600 amp hours to run. So that would make no sense. And you would also need a 24-volt charger in order to set it up like this, which 24-volt chargers are more expensive. So as far as your parallel connected, you can run two batteries together, and say you have two 12-volt 100 amp hour batteries. When you run them in parallel, you will have 200 amp hours, but only at 12 volts. It's a more efficient way of doing it, but the bad thing is you are limited to 12 volts. So you would have to either set this up with a booster, which would be your third option, or you would have to do a series parallel setup, which is a different video as well. Make sure to use the same amp hours on both of those setups, like we spoke about earlier. And then your boosted, your third option on the right, you can use one battery. So by using only one battery, it costs less. And then you could add more runtime down the road if you wanted to by setting it parallel connected to a booster. So you can use a 12-volt charger that way as well. And you're only limited to the battery specs. A lot of manufacturers will tell you can only run 6 or 8 batteries in series or parallel. So that's the only limitation that you have. For the most part, it's the best way to go using the booster. The only bad part is you do get a little efficiency loss with the boosters, and they do generate a little bit of heat. Other than that, these are the pros and cons. If you wanted super simple, you could go with series. It just costs more. If you want to be able to run it longer, you could go with the boosted parallel. If you're running a 12-volt pump, parallel connected, you're fine. You can do that with no booster and you're good to go there. It's all in your setup, how you are setting it up, and exactly what you are looking as far as runtime. And we'll go over runtime and such in another video coming up. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.